The first dawn over Rodalan 3 came in thin, pale bands of light that slid across metal support frames and tired fruit trees. The soil was dry. The air smelled like iron dust and damp leaves. Kalen Ward stepped out onto his wooden porch and tightened the cloth band around the stump of his missing right arm. The habit never helped the phantom ache, but it made him feel ready to face the orchard that had nearly taken his limb. The farm was dying. Corporate harvesters. Market crashes. A 3-year drought. His parents had carved this land from nothing. Kalen had refused to walk away, even when the numbers stopped making sense. He didn't want charity. He didn't want pity. He needed a partner who would stay when things went bad. So he had done something most of the village called desperate. He signed a marriage contract with an off-world agency. He spent the last of his credits. Not for beauty. Not for status. He had asked for one thing in the file. Someone who chooses the work and chooses to stay. A low rumble rolled over the ridge. Kalen looked up. A shuttle cut through the sky, coming in early. Dust flared as it landed near the far edge of the orchard. The ramp dropped. A woman stepped out. Her skin was a soft violet, like dusk light on stone. Long white hair fell straight to her lower back. Her eyes were pale silver, focused, scanning the rows of trees before they settled on him. Her clothes were wrong for a cold morning. A split skirt, a light wrap across her chest, thin ankle rings that chimed when she walked. Graceful, but not practical. She carried a small travel bag in one hand and a sealed metal case in the other. The case was the size of a toolbox, reinforced, lined with strange etchings that looked more like codes than decoration. She stopped a few steps away. "You are Kalen Ward," she said. Her voice was low, steady. "I am," he answered. "You must be Lisa Verith," she said with a small nod. Contracted partner. He felt suddenly aware of the dirt on his boots, the lines on his face, the empty space where his right arm should have been. She stood upright and composed, a stranger on his failing moon farm. "You're early," he said. "I requested an early landing," Lisa replied. "Fewer eyes on me." Kalen understood. The village would talk. They always talked. She looked over the trees again, slower this time. He stiffened, waiting for the judgment, the complaint, the hesitation. Instead, she knelt, ran her fingertips over the dry soil, and said quietly, "You've kept this place alive longer than most could, with almost no support." For the first time that morning, something inside Kalen shifted. Not trust, not yet, but something close to relief. And as the early light slid over them, he had the strange feeling that the woman with the metal case would change far more than his harvest totals. Kalen led Lisa along the nearest row of trees. Thin leaves trembled where heavy fruit should have been. "The irrigation line's there," he said, pointing with his chin. "It's been leaking since last cycle." He knelt by the pipe, pressed his thumb to the cracked clamp, and grimaced as water spilled over his hand. He adjusted his grip with his one arm, jaw tight. "Hold here," he said, nodding toward the pipe. "I'll try to force it shut." Lisa crouched beside him without hesitation. Her skirt brushed the dirt, her fingers wrapped around the pipe, firm and steady. "Tell me if I'm overpressuring it," she murmured. "You're fine." He set the tool in place and shoved. The clamp resisted. Pain flared in his shoulder as he compensated for the missing arm. "You're fighting it," Lisa said quietly. "Change the angle. Let the leverage work for you." He stopped, adjusted the tool the way she showed, and pressed again. Click. The clamp locked into place cleanly. Kalen exhaled. "Where'd you learn that?" "My mother fixed everything in our home," Lisa said. "Tools don't lie. If you pay attention, they teach you." He set the wrench down and studied her. She hadn't flinched. She hadn't made a single comment about his missing arm. She just helped. "I didn't know you had farm experience," he said. "I grew up near orchards," she answered. "Different crops, different stars. Principles are the same." He had imagined weeks of training, slow explanations, gentle chores at first. Instead, she walked the rows like she was reading a book he couldn't quite see. Back at the farmhouse, she paused at the doorway. Her eyes moved over the small kitchen, the old table, the worn chairs, everything neatly arranged out of habit. "It feels honest," she said simply. "It's what I have," he replied. She set down her travel bag, but kept the metal case at her side. Always within reach. Always under one hand. "Heavy?" Kalen asked lightly. "Valuable," she said. "And personal. Dangerous?" "No." Her gaze held his without any wobble. "Just important to me." He let it go. "For now. If you want to rest." if you want a rest. I'd rather work, she said at once. If I'm idle, my mind starts looking backward. I didn't come here to live in the past. Her words were simple, but the edge behind them was not. Kalen grabbed a second brace and nodded toward the door. Fine. The irrigation needs shoring up. I'll tighten clamps. You keep things from exploding. A faint smile touched her mouth. Then we start with the lines. They stepped back into the light together, and for the first time in years, Kalen didn't feel like he was walking into the orchard alone. At BY mid-morning, they reached the eastern rows, where the trees sagged under age and neglect. Bark split in pale cracks. Leaves faded yellow at the edges. These are the worst, Kalen said. Lost half this section last cycle. Lisa traced a finger along a wounded branch. You cut the old growth too early, she said softly. It needed a few more days to anchor. The storm reports said we'd lose that ridge if I waited, he replied. Reports are written for averages, she said. But storms hit this ridge late. Your logs prove it. He blinked. My what? I read your atmospheric histories in the contract file, she said. On the flight. Kalen stared. Most outsiders couldn't be bothered to remember his name, much less his weather logs. You came here prepared, he said. I came here to stay, she answered. They worked side by side. He cut grafts with his left hand. She placed each scion carefully, wrapping the tape with quick, precise movements. Their shoulders brushed now and then. Neither of them pulled away. Halfway through the row, an engine growl rolled over the ridge. A small hover cart slid down the path and stopped at the orchard's edge. Hemer Voss, village trader, climbed down with his usual sour expression. His gaze went straight to Lisa. So it's true, he said. You brought in an off-world bride. Kalen's jaw tightened. Her name is Lisa. She works here. Hemer snorted. Looks like she's dressed for a party, not a field. You sure she can handle real work? Before Kalen could answer, Lisa stepped forward, shoulders straight. I can handle more than I look, she said calmly. The land understands effort, not appearance. Hemer eyed her, unimpressed, then turned back to Kalen. Waterboard's raising rates again, he said. Rumor is they're cutting individual farm allocations next cycle. Corporations get priority. Kalen felt his stomach drop. How bad? Bad enough you should start saying goodbye to half these trees, Hemer said with a smirk. Good luck, Ward. You'll need it. He climbed back into the hover and rolled away, dust spitting from the wheels. Lisa watched the cart vanish over the ridge. He doesn't like outsiders, Kalen muttered. He doesn't like anyone who might prove him wrong, she replied. They stood in silence for a moment, listening to the wind move through thinning leaves. He's wrong about you, Kalen said at last. Her eyes lifted. About what? You don't look out of place here, he said. Something small and fragile flickered across her face, then settled. Then we'll make sure I'm not, she said. Show me the next tree. We're not done yet. They went back to work. The grafting knife moved. The tape wrapped. The orchard, for all its damage, felt less like a lost cause and more like a slow, stubborn fight. Human and alien. One arm and two steady hands, both refusing to walk away. Heat thickened over the orchard by late afternoon. Dust clung to their legs. Lisa's skirt carried dark streaks of soil. Her white hair had picked up flecks of bark. We stop here, Kalen said. Tired people make bad cuts. Lisa flexed her fingers. My hands can still work. My back disagrees. We listen to backs on this moon, he replied. They're the first thing to break. She didn't argue. Behind the house, she worked the old hand pump. Cold water splashed over her violet skin, washing away the dirt in slow streams. She cupped water to her arms and neck, letting out a small sigh. Kalen cleared his throat so he wouldn't startle her. I'll make food. What do we have? She asked. Dried herd meat. Boiled grain. Nothing fancy. Then it's enough, she said. Inside, steam soon filled the little kitchen with a salty scent. Lisa joined him, cutting grain packs with smooth motions. When she moved, he saw an old yellow bruise along her hip, nearly faded but still visible. You hurt? He asked quietly. She glanced down, then shook her head. Old damage. From before I left. It won't slow me. He didn't push. Not yet. They ate at the wooden table. Simple food. Slow bites. Steam curling between them. What did you expect? She asked. When you signed the contract. Kalen stared at his bowl. Someone who wouldn't run at the first drought, he said. Someone who chose the work, not the escape route. And what did you fear? She pressed. That I'd get someone who hated this life but stayed for the credits, he answered. Someone already halfway gone. She studied him, then spoke calmly. I chose your file, Lisa said, because you didn't ask for status or money. You asked for work. For a partner, not property. Silence settled. This time it wasn't heavy. It was full. After they ate, Kalen cleared a small room that had belonged to storage and old memories. Boxes stacked high, dust thick in the air. He pushed and dragged with his one arm until a narrow cot stood clear by the window. When he stepped back into the kitchen, she was waiting at the doorway. It's ready, he said. Small, but it's yours. She walked into the room slowly, eyes tracing the simple bed, the folded blanket, the empty shelf. This is more than I expected, she admitted. I've had less. Her metal case stayed in her hands. Never far, never unattended. It stays with me, she said, placing it beside the cot. At night. Your room, he replied. Your rules. She ran her fingers over the blanket once, grounding herself. Do I lock the door? She asked. Kalen blinked. If you want. I won't come in unless you say so. That's not what I meant, she said quietly. I've stayed in places where a lock didn't matter. His chest tightened. You're safe here, he said, voice steady. Lock it. Don't lock it. Either way, no one crosses that door without your permission. That includes me. She held his gaze for a long beat. Then she slid the lock into place. Not from fear. From choice. Good night, Kalen. Good night, Lisa. He walked down the hall to his own room. The house, for the first time in years, didn't feel empty. It felt occupied, alive, uncertain, but in a way that made his chest hurt and ease at the same time. He fell asleep thinking about thin trees, rising water costs, and a violet-skinned stranger who worked like she owned the land already, but still checked if the door would hold. Kalen woke to soft footsteps in the hall. He grabbed his vest and stepped out just as Lisa reached the kitchen. I didn't mean to wake you, she said. I wake with the first dawn, he replied. Habit. Her hair was neater. Same wrap, same skirt, but she stood straighter, more settled. Can you show me the rest of the farm today? She asked. Not just to see it. I want to understand it before the water cuts come. He nodded. Western rows first. They're what the orchard is supposed to look like. They ate quickly, then stepped out into crisp air. Dew clung to the branches. Light threaded between the trees. This place feels alive, Lisa said softly. It can stay that way, Kalen answered. If we fight for it. In the western section, the trees stood taller. Leaves fuller. Fruit faintly scented the air. This is better, she said, running her hand along the bark. Deep roots. Stronger balance. He picked a small pearl fruit and handed it to her. Pale blue skin. Cool under her touch. We never had anything like this where I grew up, she murmured. Bite it. She did. Juice ran over her fingers. Her eyes widened. It's sweet, she said. And sharp. Used to be sweeter, Kalen said. Soil's too tired now. She finished the fruit, even the weaker version, with quiet appreciation. They walked another row. Lisa suddenly crouched. Here, she said. At the base of one trunk, a fresh crack split the bark. I missed that, Kalen muttered. This happened days ago, she said, when the last atmospheric shift hit. Pressure tore it just enough. Can we save it, he asked. We try, she said. We brace it and seal it. If the crack spreads, the whole row goes with it. Back at the shed, she dug through crates until she found an old tin of resin. Tested it. Nodded. It'll work if we warm it, she said. While the resin softened in the sun, Kalen watched her adjust her wrap and skirt again, tugging the fabric tight so she could kneel without worrying. You need proper clothes, he said. I know, she replied with a faint smile. This was the only set not torn when I left. He swallowed back a question about what had torn the others. We'll get you something that fits the work, he said. You're not breaking your back in festival cloth. Something in her shoulders loosened. They returned to the cracked trunk. Lisa knelt and spread the warmed resin carefully along the bark, her fingers gentle, movements exact. Kalen held the tree steady while she worked. Brace it, she said. He fit wooden supports around the wounded trunk and strapped them tight. When they finished, they both stood back and studied the tree. It'll hold, she said. Because you knew what to do, he replied. She looked up at him, silver eyes steady. Because you let me do it, she said. Some men like broken things. They don't like them repaired. He had no answer to that. So he gave her the only thing he could, sincerity. This farm needs every strong thing it can get, he said. Including you. A wind gust moved through the branches, rustling leaves overhead. The air felt different. Lisa's gaze drifted toward the ridge where the village lay hidden. A rate cut will crush farms like this, she said. Unless someone prepares before the rules change. You have a plan, Kalen guessed. Not yet, she said. But I have a starting point. Her hand brushed the memory of the metal case in her room. She didn't say anything about it. Not yet. The first warning of the ion storm came as a low, vibrating hum across the ridge. The light dimmed in uneven pulses. The hair on Kalen's arms rose. Storm, he said. We need the stabilizers tight before it hits full. Lisa didn't hesitate. Then let's move. Wind knifed down the rows as they reached the main support posts. Dust spun in thin spirals around their legs. Take that side, Kalen shouted. She climbed the metal frame and threw her weight against it while he tightened the joint with his one arm. The wind struck hard, bending branches and rattling the support beams. Her hair whipped across her face. She ignored it, staying locked in place. We need the second post, he yelled. Lisa ran, skirt whipping around her knees, bare feet digging into the soil. She dropped to the lower bolts, trying to shield her hands from flying grit. The wrap across her chest nearly slipped under the strain. She caught it with one hand, knuckles white. Kalen stepped behind her, using his body as a windbreak. Forget the wrap, he said. I've got you. Focus on the bolt. She did. Her shoulders pressed against his chest as she braced herself. Together they forced the bolts tight. Ion rain followed the wind. Heavy, stinging droplets slapped skin and metal. The air sizzled where charged water touched exposed steel. Barn, Kalen shouted. Now. He grabbed her hand. She didn't question him. They ran through the storm, shoulders bumping, feet sliding in wet dirt. By the time they reached the barn, both were soaked, clothes plastered to their bodies. Kalen shoved the door open. It slammed closed behind them under the force of the wind. A hanging lantern swung wildly overhead, then settled into a frantic arc. For a few seconds they just stood there, breathing hard. Rain hammered the roof. The world outside vanished in noise and shadow. Water dripped from Lisa's hair, tracing lines down her throat. Her violet skin shimmered in the shifting lantern light. She brushed wet strands from her face. You didn't have to shield me out there, she said quietly. Yes, I did, Kalen answered. You're out there working in clothes that were never meant for storms. I'm not letting you get hurt for my pride. Her fingers curled gently around his wrist. I'm not fragile, Kalen, she said. I wouldn't have survived this long if I were. I know, he said, but you're still someone I'm responsible for while you're on this land. Not as property, as someone I asked to stand beside me. Something eased in her eyes. The storm roared. Inside the barn, there was only the sound of their breathing and water dripping from their clothes. Kalen lifted a hand and brushed a strand of wet hair away from her cheek. If you don't want this closeness, he said softly, tell me now, and I stepped back. Lisa didn't move away. She stepped closer. I haven't felt safe standing this close to anyone in years, she whispered. I want to see what it's like when I'm not afraid. She reached for his vest and gripped it near his waist, anchoring herself. He slid his arm around her back, pulling her in gently. No force. No rush. She rested her forehead against his jaw and exhaled. He felt the tension slowly drain from her muscles. Then she lifted her face and kissed him. Slow. Certain. No panic. No testing. Kalen kissed her back, careful and steady, his hand cupping the side of her face as if she might flinch. She didn't. Her hands moved up his chest, learning the shape of him, not as a contract holder, but as a man. They stayed like that as the storm pounded above them. No frantic movements. No tearing. Just two exhausted people taking warmth where they could find it, finally allowed to choose. I'm not afraid of you, she murmured against his shoulder. You never have to be, he said. Outside, the storm watered the starving orchard. Inside, in the dim barn light, something else took root. Trust that wasn't written in any contract file. By the time the storm eased, the lantern had calmed to a slow, gentle sway. The barn smelled of wet wood and damp earth. Lisa's head rested against Kalen's chest, her breathing steady. Temperature will drop when the clouds clear, he said quietly. We should get inside. As long as you stay close on the walk, she answered. I will. They stepped out. The orchard glistened under the fading storm light. Leaves shone silver with water. The soil was dark, heavy and full, drinking every drop. At the porch steps, Lisa paused. "Kalen," she said, "we need to talk about why I really came here." He waited, saying nothing. "In every other file," she continued, "men demanded things. Status, credits, control of my assets. They wanted a wife who came with money or influence." Her hand rested on her stomach for a brief second. "Habit, memory. Your file asked for none of that," she said. "Just work, partnership, a chance to keep something alive." He swallowed. "I meant it." "I know," she replied. "That's why I brought the case." Inside the house, he lit a lantern in the kitchen. The soft gold glow wrapped around the room. Lisa disappeared into her room and returned wearing one of his shirts, the hem reaching her thighs, sleeves rolled clumsily. "This feels safer," she said, fingers brushing the fabric. "It suits you," he said. She disappeared once more and came back carrying the metal case, setting it gently on the table between them. "You told me it was personal," he said. "It is," she answered. "It's also the reason I needed someone honest." She tapped the top. "My world didn't fall because of storms. It fell because of debt. When my family was erased by numbers on a screen, I salvaged what I could. Not jewelry, not trinkets." She pressed her palm to a small plate on the side. The locks released with a soft hiss. Inside were stacked data bars and a cloth-wrapped bundle. She opened the cloth to reveal thin crystal sheets etched with faint patterns. "Water-right bonds," she said, "and seed patents. Enough to buy into a regional water grid and enough to re-engineer this orchard's soil if we choose right." Kalen stared, stunned. You brought this here?" he asked. "You could have bought your way onto any core world." "I didn't want a tower," she said. "I wanted a place that was real. A human who wasn't trying to own me. Someone who needed help but refused to steal it." His throat felt tight. "Why me?" "Because you were willing to fail alone," she answered. "That's the kind of person I trust with a fortune. You don't throw it at the first comfort. You use it to keep something alive." She pushed the case a few inches toward him. "I didn't come here to be your ticket out," she said. "I came to invest in this." She nodded toward the window, where the orchard shimmered under storm light. "In us. In your stubbornness. In this farm." Kalen sank into the chair. "With that kind of credit," he began. "We can connect to independent recyclers," she said. "Buy storage tanks before the rate cuts hit. Shift to deep-root stock. Maybe even install a microgenerator so you're not begging the corporate grid for power." "You'd really spend it here?" he asked. "I already chose to," she replied. "The moment I stepped on that shuttle." He let out a shaky breath. For years, survival had been about stretching one more season, one more harvest. Now, for the first time, the future felt like more than a line of debts and broken branches. "Lisa," he said slowly, "this changes everything." "It doesn't change one thing," she replied. "You asked for a partner. I'm not giving you a gift. I'm building a life with you." Silence settled again, but this time it was full of possibilities, not fear. She moved to his side of the table and slipped her hand into his. "When the orchard steadies," she said, voice very soft. "When the water is secure and the ground is strong again. I want more than rows of trees." He met her gaze. "I want a family," she said. "With you. On this land. Not as an escape, but as something we both chose after the hardest part was done." His chest ached and warmed all at once. "If we get there," he said, "I want that too." "We will," she answered. "You were willing to fight with nothing. Imagine what you'll do with enough." Outside, the last drops slid from the roof. Inside, the farmhouse finally felt like a home. Later that night, they stood together on the porch. The orchard stretched out before them, trees shining in the wet dark. The storm had left scars and strength in equal measure. Kalen's left hand held Lisa's. Her other hand rested lightly over the place where a future might grow someday. He had ordered an alien bride. He had expected a pair of hands. He had not expected a mind sharp enough to read his land at a glance. A heart that chose him, not his desperation. And a fortune that would not just save his farm, but reshape his entire life. On a quiet moon at the edge of nowhere, a one-armed human farmer and a violet-skinned alien woman stood together, ready to prove that when humans refuse to give up, and when someone believes in that stubborn spark, whole worlds can change. HFY